Hello and welcome to our first episode of 2021. Boy, it feels good to put 2020 to bed for sure. I'm Eileen Roach, founder of Designs and Machine Embroidery, and I'm just delighted to be here with you today. And thank you for joining me. We are going to talk about probably a New Year's resolution that many of us share, which is get those quilt tops finished and into quilts, right? So we're going to talk about my top 3 tips for doing that. And then it'll be the big reveal of our 2021 sew along. And so nice to see so many of you popping in. Like, hello, Misha. Great to see you. Happy New Year to you. Judy Warren, aloha. She's out in Hawaii. I think she always says aloha. And Cindy in Portland, Texas. So many towns in Texas, right? Portland, you'd think would be Oregon, but nope. We have tons of little small towns in the state of Texas. So I'd love to hear from you. And our friend Sue Brown from Canada is joining us. You know, she is the mama over at OML Embroidery, and she is going to be hosting this Saturday the Dime Sew Along. So make sure you stay tuned for the rest of the broadcast so you can see what she's going to be doing. And Sue, I wish you a very happy New Year. I hope all is well with you and your family. It's been, I've had a nice couple weeks off, although I'll tell you, we're still working here for sure, even though we weren't broadcasting. But I'm happy to be back and so excited about our 2021 sew along. So before we do the big reveal, I do want to show you what we're going to be, my tips for getting those quilt tops into quilts. So let's go ahead into PowerPoint and we will talk about choosing and combining designs and achieving perfect placement and the get it done finish, right? That's the absolute end. And boy, do I know that, because this small town charm, it's that end part that you have to get it handled and get it all done. Sharon Crowder, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for loving our products, and especially those monster hoops. Boy, what will we do without them, right? You most certainly can't finish a quilt without one. Well, you can, but it's going to take you a little bit longer. All right, so let's take a look at one. When I am selecting designs, I ask myself several questions on how to select the designs, because there's hundreds out there. I mean, there's just hundreds, if not thousands. Well, there are thousands. So the first thing I ask is, what's the intended use of the quilt? Is this going to be a wall hanging that's not going to get any wear and tear, no usage, so that would be something to keep in mind. If it's going to be well loved and used on a bed, laundered often, is it a baby quilt? Maybe dragged through the house and the garden, which is really what you want a baby quilt, to do, right? You want them to use it and love it. So keep those things in mind, and that will help you select embroidery designs, because you wouldn't want to select embroidery designs for a crib quilt that is going to be loved to death, right? You just kind of want to do an overall quilt design and just get that done. Okay, are there elements in the fabric that you can enhance? So does the fabric speak to you? Let's take a look. I have a Christmas quilt here that didn't make it into the finished project for 2020, but dang, I should do this and get it ready for 2021. So here let me move this up a little. You can see, and it's a jelly roll quilt. Here you can see these tiny little mittens. Aren't they adorable? So cute. So I use that to select the mitten design. Now, I actually digitized that myself. It's so easy. I just take a photo of that mitten, bring it into my software, trace it, and there's my repetitive design that I can run across the border. Now, you wouldn't sell a design like that if you used the fabric as your artwork, but for your personal use, I think that would be quite acceptable. So that was a good way to finish that border, if it was finished, right? And now let's take another look at, this is a cheater quilt. So here we have this great big anchor on it, right? And here I'm trying to find it in the camera. There we go. So we have this big anchor, which is really the most predominant element of design in this cheater quilt. So I could have done all these tiny little embroidery designs that I'll show you in an image in a moment, or I could use that anchor as inspiration and create a edge-to-edge design that I use and just throw, toss, sprinkle all over that quilt. And then, of course, I use that same kind of motif, that smaller anchor, for the border. So let's go ahead and take a look at if this was something that you were really going to be in love with, shall we say. And, oh, don't I have that? Okay, thought I had an image. Probably have an image somewhere. Sam, where's my image? What did I do with that? Here we go. Let's bring that up full screen so y'all can see it, what I'm talking about. This is that same cheater quilt, but without the anchor. And then it has tiny, beautiful little embroidery designs that are used to enhance each square and the borders, the sashing that separates each one. So that's another way to address the same quilt, right? There's no one way to quilt a quilt top. So you just have to, arrive at your solution or your decision of some of these questions. So let me kind of back out of here and go back to where I was. What are the elements? Okay. So what I really meant to say here was, if there's elements in the quilt top itself that you want to enhance, like in this case, these diamonds are the predominant feature of the table runner. And so to use a diamond design that's got kind of faceted lines that enhance and accent that shape, that's a great solution on what to quilt that quilt. Fast designs, one color for sure, and they stitch very quickly. So does it have a theme? So that's where I was supposed to show you my Christmas quilt and my anchor quilt. So I kind of stepped ahead of myself. So hopefully you'll forgive me. So we already, so for inspiration, use the fabric, use an applique that's in the embroidery design, such as that anchor that I used, or the mittens that were in the Christmas quilt. And you can create your own designs or look for designs that are similar to that. So that's a good solution. Now, is it a busy print or a busy layout? Okay, so let's take a look at a busy print. Oops, I'm picking up my hoop mat, sorry. Okay, so let's take a look at a busy print. This is a pretty little quilt, right? But all of these prints they're pretty busy. So to me, I just used an overall stipple design that fills the entire quilt edge to edge, very fast, very doable. Let's see if you can get a better look at it on the wrong side so that you can see what kind of design it is. Just overall stipple, nothing fancy. That means it's fast too. Edge to edge is probably, your bread and butter designs. They're the ones that you're going to stitch most often, and they give you a quicker finish. So that's a good solution for that. So that's a busy print, what I would call a busy print. Now here is definitely some busy prints too, but this whole quilt is also a very busy layout. So it's kind of a sampler quilt. We have different styles of blocks and, and lots of pattern. So in this project, I used the same embroidery design, the same quilting design in every corner of every block. And maybe, you can't really see it on the back side either. But that's what I stitched, in each large block. So here is really my one block. That's 6 inches. And when they're pieced together for 4, I get a nice 12-inch block. So here's my quilting design. I just repeated that same design on all these blocks in the sampler quilt. On the flying geese border, I just did a simple, kind of orange peel design. I guess maybe there'd be a better name for that, but what have you. So that's a fun solution. It's fast. This was all pieced in the hoop. That's a lot of piecing. This is one of those projects, and maybe you have this same sensation. Once you piece it all together, you might be a little tired of looking at it, right? So then you just want to get it done. And that's where one design, even though it's not edge to edge, but it's repeated on every block, it creates a cohesive finish to this quilt. Okay, so what do we have next? After that, what's your skill level, right? Because this is also a good example of that cheater quilt that I showed you. So if you're just beginning, then you probably don't want to do this precise placement like we have here. Each individual design is positioned inside of each square of fabric, and the border, the sashing designs are also precisely placed. It's a beautiful quilt. And if this is one that's going to be, you know, snuggled under in front of the TV in the family room or something, maybe you don't want to devote that much time to it. If it's a wedding gift or, you know, for a happy young couple, then maybe you do want to devote that amount of time to it. But remember, you know, if you bite off more than you can chew, according to your time or skill level, you know, that can really frustrate you. So set yourself up for success for sure. And what's the sewing field? That's another big question. Each of us have, you know, limits on our embroidery machines. As much as we love to quilt, we don't have that beautiful long arm pantograph that is 6 feet wide, maybe 8 feet wide by the throat, 22 inches. You know, we're limited to our hoop. I mean, we do cartwheels over 10.5 by 16, right? But you're still, you know, that's still that's your sewing field. So you have to, you know, remember that and select a design that's going to fit in that. So I have a star there, and I'm wondering why I have a star there, because I think I'm supposed to go over to, I don't know. Okay, so now let's talk about perfect placement. There's really only one way that I know to get perfect placement, and that is through the use of embroidery templates. That's where you go into software, you open up an embroidery design with software, and you print a template of the embroidery design, and I'll show you that. Now, I know some of our top-end machines have scanners, cameras, and projectors, which are fabulous tools. But personally, when I'm doing a quilt that's going to be 50 hoopings, you know, 50 different quilt designs stitched on that quilt, I don't like using those high-tech features of my machine because I find that they're pretty time consuming. Now, I may cheat and use that projector to confirm that my stitches are going to connect line to line, but for overall placement, when I'm in the hoop, I'm just using a template, just like this. So here you can see, I like to print my embroidery designs on our print and stick target template paper. And that's that adhesive, well, it is tacky, but it's also translucent. It has a protective paper on one side of it, and that you feed it through the printer on your computer, and it will print out your embroidery design with a crosshair in actual size and in black and white or color, whatever you decide. And then I use that on my quilt to determine the absolute easiest, you know, the best way to achieve perfect placement. So here you can see I have a large template that's going to connect one design to a previously stitched design, and that's what's key there. So that's what I'm focusing on at the needle when I am in this part of the quilt. I've already stitched a design on the right side of the quilt near the edge, and now I place that print and stick target template paper right on the next design area, connecting the printed line, quilted line, with the stitched line. Once I know that's connected, I just center my needle over that template, remove the template, and stitch the design. And before I remove it, I most certainly can advance to the first stitch of that design, and that will take me right to, hopefully, where it's connecting to the previously stitched embroidery design. And if it's not, because I'm in Snap Hoop Monster, I just lift that top frame, move the fabric a little bit till it's perfectly aligned, and it's awesome. It's awesome. Okay, here we are, left side. Now you can see how, if you, I don't know what kind of device you are viewing this broadcast on, but if you're really in tight, you can see that the printed line does not actually connect with the stitched line. So do you care? You might. I don't. You know, this is going to be 55 hoopings on this quilt. If it's not connected by 1 or 2 stitches, I'm happy. That's fine with me. You know, I'm going to drop that quilt frame down, that monster hoop quilt top frame, and stitch that design. And then after I take it out of the hoop, I wouldn't even be able to find that tiny little separation. So, okay. Once you get it quilted, add a label. You know, it's really important to document your work because you poured your heart and soul into that quilt, whether, you know, it's a gift for a new baby, a bride, a daughter, a son, a family member, a good friend. It doesn't matter. So I like to make a label that I put in the corner of the quilt on the back, and I'm often applying the binding, and then I remember, oh, you got to do the label. But that's okay. You know, by now I am off of the embroidery machine. You know, it's already quilted and so forth. So I'm sewing this binding together, and it's easy for me to just hoop a piece of fabric and make that label. So it is nice to commemorate the reason for the quilt, if there is one, like in the quilt corner in the label in the top right. That was a birthday present for my sister Marie, and she was just 50 yesterday. So you know, it's nice to put why, right, and in celebration of her new home. And then the one on the bottom is a sample that I made, and so, you know, that's what it says. It's Circus, and the fabric is by our print on demand fabric company, My Fabric Designs. It has a date on it. And then the other one on the left was to welcome my great nephew Evan into the family. So there you have it. And you know, it has a Bible quote on it, and you know, so that's documented. It's kind of fun, right? And wow, happy birthday, Marie. Yeah, well, Marie wishes that birthday was yesterday, but that's okay. We'll just tell everybody it was yesterday, right? Okay, and then bind it. And you all know, a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was a month ago, I showed how to do binding, and we're not going to go into that today. You can always watch a previous broadcast, but I most certainly use my weightless quilter, and that is the woo way to get it done. I love that. It's just finishes that job. It holds all that bulk up out of the way, and it's like that. One of the happiest parts of making a quilt really is putting the binding on, because you know you are done. It's just a great feeling. Okay, so what else is next? Well, let's see if we have any questions, because we are about to reveal. Let's see. Crystal Campbell wants to order a weightless quilter. When will you run a sale? You should take advantage of one of our upcoming events. You can go to Inspired by Dime and see where that is, because we don't have the weightless quilter in store right now, on sale right now. And Carolyn Jewell, you like that? Oh, let's see, where I missed her. Saw it. The binding technique was great. Yeah, it is the easiest binding you've ever done. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And boy, now I don't dread it, right? I used to dread it forever. What if your quilt design is larger than the print and stick paper? Well, Mary, in our software and in our free software, which is Embroidery Toolshed, it will allow you to print a design no matter what size it is, and it will tile it. So it will print it out on separate pages, splitting it evenly. And then because it's sticky paper, you know, you can piece it together. And so that works out just great. Mm-hmm. And let's see, how would you recommend quilting the backing on a quilt as you go block quilt? Misha, that's a really big question. I need more info on that. I'd probably need a photo. Quilting the backing on a quilt as you go quilt block. Yeah, I not enough information for me to answer that. Sorry. And then Linda Rogers, you want to know what paper that is. So that's our print and stick Target template paper. And they can give you an image of that, and I'll hide this so you can see. So that's available on our website. That stuff is just awesome. And Tammy Parker, you want to know if this will be available for replay? Yes, on both YouTube and Facebook Live. These live broadcasts live forever. You can watch me age right on your computer. And but you'll see everything that we share, we keep it up there, and you can add comments and so forth. And I want to say hi to my friend Hildur Hendricks from Vineland, New Jersey. You know, I grew up just south of you where you are, so I know that area very well. But I haven't been there a long time. I imagine Vineland has grown quite a much. Let's see, Sharon, you want to know how big of a monster hoop for a first timer? Well, if you are thinking about purchasing your first monster hoop, I would suggest to ask yourself two questions. One is, are you using it to quilt? Is that your main reason? And if the answer to that is yes, then I would suggest purchasing the largest hoop that your sewing machine will, accept. If you're going to use it for a variety of different things, then I would ask yourself, what is the number one size hoop that you use now of your standard embroidery hoop? Are you always reaching for your 4x4? Are you always reaching for your 5x7? Or maybe, some people love that 8x8. So if that's the case, then get that size in a monster hoop, and you'll be familiar with the size and comfortable with it. And I think you'll enjoy that. I think that's, if you answer those two questions. And then once you get your first one, you just have to put all the other sizes that accommodate your machine on your wish list. Let's see. Louise Armstrong, you haven't figured out how to print your design on it. Do you have a video on using it as far as printing on it goes? I don't know if I have a video on it, but I'll tell you what, if you bear with me just for a moment, I can open up, I can show you. How about that? So let me just get a new design before we actually share my screen, Sam, because goodness knows what's going to be up on that screen. And then we will find a quilting design, and so I can just show you, because it's really easy. And this is something that you should do all the time, because quilting with your embroidery machine is a fabulous technique that we all want to do. What is this? Okay, here's a swirl design. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have to reshare, and I'll do my I guess I'll do application for right now. Okay, that's the wrong thing. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. I appreciate it. I have a couple computers going here and 2 mice and, all that, right? So let's see. Now I'm going to stop my share and then share again so I can grab my software. Here we go. Okay, so, and Louise, I'll take your name out, your comment out so you can see. So here I have opened a quilting design that's just in my library. It doesn't really belong to anybody. So once it's opened in Embroidery Toolshed, which is a free software that you are able to download from our website and use. Now, on my screen, I have my full-blown Perfect Embroidery Pro shown. And so you're seeing a lot more tools and buttons than you would see in Embroidery Toolshed. But for this function, it's identical. So then after you open your embroidery design, you go to File, Print, and I go into Print Preview so that you can set up, oh, is it not going to, okay, one more way to share the screen. I apologize. Okay. So now, okay, Sam, pop me back in there. I think I have it now. Okay, there we go. So now you can see this is what's going to print. So let's take a good look at that. I can make this a little bit larger for you. And you'll notice at the top, it's telling me the name of the design. It tells me how many stitches, the colors, the size, blah, 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 the date. That would be today's date. And it has a crosshair. So, but I can also go into settings, and these are all my choices. So we most certainly want actual size. We want a crosshair for this technique that we're doing. We probably want the color analysis, maybe, maybe not, a header, and if there's any artwork. And artwork, you can skip that, doesn't really mean it. Realistic, if you have a checkbox in realistic, that will give you a finely visible line of stitching, because quilting stitches, quilting designs are one line of thread. So you'll get a better printout if you use a checkbox in realistic and also stitches. So how about if I turn off stitches so you can see what happens to the design? Now there's nothing there. So go back to settings and make sure you have a checkbox in stitches and click OK. And then you just want to go to page setup and or print. You just want to hit the icon to print, or you could just hit close and then go to file, print, and all of your printer choices will come up that are available on your computer. So I hope that answered your question. Pretty easy, right? Let's see. Will all software programs show crosshairs to print? All dime software programs will show crosshairs to print. I can't really speak for other software programs. And frankly, once you have dime software, why would you have anybody else's? But that's just me, right? When quilting in the hoop, should you always add extra batting when backing it? No, you don't have to at all. I personally love wool batting because it has a beautiful loft and it doesn't crease and when it's stored. So you can open up those quilts after they're stored and they're just soft and lofty. So now, if you want extra batting, if you're trying to go for a really high loft, then yeah, you can do a couple layers of batting, but when I make my quilts, I just do one beautiful layer of wool batting. I have used cotton and a cotton poly and all that, but I really love the wool because I also love to sleep under it. All of my quilts are 100% cotton, and wool is also, a natural fiber. So when I sleep under that, it breathes beautifully. I don't sweat, and it keeps me warm. Can you show us how to divide a large design in the software? I could. I could for sure, but I'm not going to show you. A quilting design doesn't make sense, right? It really doesn't make sense to. Let me just experiment here for a minute. Let's see what would happen. Because if I did a 4x4 hoop, let's just say, yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring me back over there. Okay, so if I was going to split that design into a 5x7 hoop, because that was a big design, this is the nonsense that would go on. So sometimes you have to do what I say is embroider responsibly. Just because you have the features in your software to do it doesn't mean you should do it. So a better way on a quilting design would be to select a design that fits a smaller hoop, or resize this so that it fits the smaller hoop that you want. But basically, this is how it works. So let me select a different hoop so that you can, let me see if I can find one. Well, anyway, it's put me on the spot. And I know there's somebody watching who's saying, just don't fall into that trap and try to help. Okay, but here we go. So I have, here's my design. It is about 7 inches by 6. In Perfect Embroidery Pro, this is our full-blown digitizing software. You click on the split design feature, and you are presented with this window. You'll see 1-1 is hoop 1, 2-1 is hoop 2. Now, I can move this design to determine where I want the split to happen. So I'm just taking my mouse, and you see that little hand is actually moving it, right? And then I can preview, that's what's going to stitch in hoop 1, and that's what's going to stitch in hoop 2. So you can see for a quilting design, you're going to connect in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 places, a single line of stitching. It's not worth it. It's definitely not worth it. So you need to either digitize something, yourself, or find a design that would be, more conducive to what you're doing. So let's see. What about quilting with flannel on the front and back? Well, that's a heavy quilt, Kathy. That's a heavy quilt for sure. I mean, you can do it. You can do it, but that's a lot of quilt. You know, it's not a long arm. I mean, we can do an awful lot with these embroidery machines, but I would tread softly there. Not that you can't. Let's see. You need to know more about the sew along. I know. Let's do it, right? This is pretty much what I did, but I didn't like the outcome. Yeah. You know, in the quilting designs, just don't split them. Just find designs that are closed designs or edged, you know, that connect, that fit your frame. Just doesn't make sense. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get back to PowerPoint without showing you everything. Okay, I'm ready. And so I think now that we have talked about design selection and perfect placement, and then finishing it, that label and binding, I think it's time for the 2021 Small Town Charm Reveal. We ready? Isn't that adorable? So we have 2 new versions. We're going to accommodate 2 new sizes, a 5x7 hoop, which is on the right, and a larger hoop, which is the 7x12. And each of them have a dimensional aspect in the sense that the awning is freestanding and it stands away from the quilt block itself. So let's take a look, shall we? Okay. I just love this. The 7x12 will fit a newly designed wire frame that you may want to purchase from Dime. And I think we have that purchasing information will be coming up pretty soon. But it's super fun. So this is just like the doors in the sense that you know it's a block that you make in the hoop, and then you add the backing in the hoop and turn it so it's a finished block. Now the awning is a little bit kind of made the same way, but a little different. So let's take a look at the process. Here's our frame. So you can see it has an area to hold the bottom block in place, and then the arch on top will accommodate the awning on top. So let's see. And see the dimension, how fun it is. It pops out. Oh my gosh, I just love it. So let's get started. So you're going to hoop cutaway stabilizer and lay a piece of batting in the hoop and stitch color 1, which will be a placement guide with notches that will show you where the sidewalk will seam to the quilt shop. And then you'll stitch all those details on the quilt shop. And then when it's time to add the sidewalk, you will add a strip of kind of gray fabric and place it right sides together at the bottom of the quilt shop because you're going to seam it in the next step. And then once you stitch that color, it seams, and then you flip open the fabric. And if you did the doors with us last year, we did a lot of these very same techniques. And then you'll stitch the detail. And then as you follow the color sequences, you're going to get bolts of fabric and a mini quilt that's in the quilt shop window, a cutting table with a sewing machine on top, the door, and a really cute, attractive street lamp. So that's the 7x12. That's the 7x12. So if you love it, will you throw us up some hearts and let us know? And Corey, you're glad that we included the smaller size. Yes, Corey, we most certainly listen to your suggestions. So I'm excited to offer that 5x7 because I know, lots of people just have that size, but it has a lot of impact. So you'll see as we go along. And then, of course, the last thing you're going to do is add your backing fabric right over that whole quilt block, stitch the design. And now the opening is at the top because that is going to be hidden by your awning eventually. Take it out of the hoop. Peel back that cutaway stabilizer and trim close to the stitching so you get it out of the seam allowance. And then trim the excess seam allowance away from the outer edges, and then trim those corners so that when you turn, you have a little more, you don't have so much fabric bulking into that corner. So go ahead and trim that off. Now, the awning is a little different. So let's take a look at that awning design, the graphic there. Those tan sections are what we call the return. So if you are in, cabinetry or whatever, that's the section of a carpentry or a valance that is the return from the front of the window to the wall, right? It's that side panel. So that's the return. It's a triangular section in this awning, part of, the embroidery design itself. And it's that return that gives you the dimensionality of this design. And of course, we cheat with a pipe cleaner right inside. Wait till you see how fun. So you're going to hoop cutaway stabilizer and stitch a placement guide. Now this is for the 7x12. And the next color will be a placement guide for a folded length of ribbon. And you're going to place that fold right at that vertical line. And then you will stitch the next color, which is a tack down of the ribbon. And then place another piece of awning fabric right sides together. And this is actually the outer fabric of the awning, so that ribbon goes on the lining side of the awning, just so you know. And the ribbon is there so you can tie it to the frame. If you're not going to use the frame, then you can skip the ribbon. Okay, trimming is everything, right? Little tiny scallops can be challenging. So you're going to want to trim that scalloped edge about 1/8 from the stitch line. And where on the peaks, on the inside or the valley of the scallops, you want to snip in there like a triangular section. So take the tip of your scissors and snip into the corner. Do not cut those stitches. If you cut the stitches, you'll have a blowout and you'll have to repeat the process, make a whole nother one. So, and then after that, after you get it all turned, you're going to insert the pipe cleaner into the awning, and then you're going to edge stitch along that pipe cleaner so that you hold the pipe cleaner in place at the top of those scallops. And then, okay, all right, so let's go over and take a look at it, okay? I have some, move some of this out of the way. I have some pieces to show you. Well, first I want to show you, this is our freestanding, this is our 7x12. These are all the instructions that you get. So you're going to have, step-by-step instructions on how to do this project. And if you read through it, it tells you what every color should be. I'm also going to give you a close-up look of, I used, where's my camera? Sorry. I used variegated thread or medley thread for the fabric bolts. And, we kind of think they look like books. So on the last version, this one, I just used solid fabric. I mean, solid thread. So your choice, your choice, whatever you want to do. But I just thought you might want to take a look and see the effect that medley thread gives you. It's attractive, but it may appear to be too much like books, but we'll see. Okay, so that's in the 7x12. And we're going to look at the 5x7 next, but that has its own set of instructions because it has its own set of embroidery designs, and all of that is in there also. Okay, so let's take a closer look at that awning and how you are going to do this. So on this one, I've turned almost all of it out except for this last little scallop. So you can, when you're inside, I like to insert a finger, just the tip of my finger, into that scallop, take my thumb and help push it out, just a little bit. And then I use a tool like a point turner, very carefully, very, very carefully. The big end is too big. Now, a popsicle stick may work, but you don't want to blow it out. You're just going to push that point just very gently, piece by piece, so that you work it all the way out. And then take a pipe cleaner and you want to measure your pipe cleaner so it is the width of that valance. Okay, it has to go all the way to the edge. I've made, about 10 of these awnings, and sometimes I cut my pipe cleaner too small, too short, and then I have a wimpy, return. You don't want that. You don't want a wimpy return. Now, I look for the better side of, on the 7x12, you're going to have a ribbon back here. So you're going to know that this is the right side, the outside. So put your pipe cleaner on the lining side between the cutaway stabilizer and the lining. And, it doesn't really matter if you have it on the other side, it's barely noticeable. So once you get it pushed in and smoothed in place all the way on top of those scallops, and then you'll want to place a couple pins next to it, right? Just like that. And then top stitch all along that edge. And here I have one completed here. So I've top stitched all along. Now that just stays in place. Now you can see that when it's time to bend this, it's going to give me a really nice bend, as you can see here. See, and it's going to stay like that. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Oh my gosh, I love that. Now I would take that to the ironing board and I would press so that you get, a nice crease in the outer fabric along the edge. All right, so now we can take a look at the 5x7. So the 5x7 is intended to be stitched on fabric, on a quilt block, and it's a complete applique design, the quilt shop itself. So you're going to stitch that on your quilt block fabric, and I used our Fuse So Soft to I applied that to the wrong side of my quilting fabric to add a little more body to that lightweight cotton, and then I hooped it with cutaway stabilizer and did my whole applique design. And once that's complete, I then make my awning, and I position that awning. Let's go to PowerPoint so you can actually see how that is. Okay, let's pop over there. All right, so here's my 5x7 awning, and you want to stitch it in thread that's the same color as the fabric. But in this image here, I have brown thread in there so you can see it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see it. Then take it out of the hoop, trim it down, place a quilter's ruler on the cutting mat, and you want to put the 1/4-inch line at the top of the awning, the straight line. Don't worry about the scallops, just at that straight line, and trim away the excess fabric. And once you do that, and then you're going to trim the scallops like we did before. And here's our finished, and we turn it inside out. So let's see. Barbara George wants to know, my largest hoop is a sewing field of 9 by 11 3/4. Do not do the larger size, can be decreased slightly to fit, probably. But Barbara, what format are you in? Tell me what format are you in? I don't know what a GRMC 1K is. And if you want to do a 6x10, should we enlarge this 5x7 or shrink? Well, you can enlarge. I'll tell you what's going to happen when you enlarge, though. That little mini quilt that's in the project. Here, Sam, let's switch over to camera. Oh, Jeff. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think you'll be fine. Because a 7x12 in our world is not really a 12 inches either. It's a little shy of that, I think. So this mini quilt, when you resize, you will lose the blocks. They will layer on top of each other. So you can't really resize, but we have two sizes, the 7x12 and 5x7. Okay, yeah, and Misha will make an absolutely adorable wall hanging. Okay, so I just want to show you on the 5x7 how you're going to apply it to a block. So I have found the center of the awning and center of the quilt shop store itself, and I align those centers. I put the awning 1 3/4 of an inch away from the quilt shop, and right side down, okay? Then I pin that in place. I hope I have another photo. Yeah, I pin that in place and stitch it in that fashion. So back over here on the camera, this is where I'm stitching. This is raw edge right here, which doesn't bother me. It may bother you. If so, use a serger to finish it. So I stitch that, top stitch that right down, and then I just flip this over. And there's my quilt block. You know what one of the best parts of this is? If this is something you're going to store, you just unbend and you have a flat project. You can store it to your heart's delight. And when it's time to display again, you can bend it one more, several times. Isn't that fun? Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. I love that. Yeah. So I think you're going to have, and Cindy King, yes, this is the new monthly project, and it's called Small Town Charm. It is a nod to our American small town, and specifically to small businesses, because boy, hasn't it been a challenge for the small businesses in America and all over the globe. So I know that we all try to continue to support them in our daily lives as much as we can. And I just thought that this would be kind of a year-long program to give a nod to the American entrepreneur and hard workers, right? For sure. So, and every Thursday, I'm going to be showing your doors, and we want you to post your door. Well, they're not doors. It's Small Town Charm. You're going to be posting your buildings, and we want you to use the hashtag Dime Sew Along. So then I'm going to search social media and find hashtag Dime Sew Along, and then I will include it in every broadcast on Thursdays to show what you all are doing, because we learn from each other and you inspire me, and that helps me design, cool stuff coming up. And we're always looking for ideas for sure, but we'll have, many different versions. We're going to have buildings, maybe a park, there's lots of different possibilities, and they don't all have to be awnings. They could be other things. So it would really be fun. Louise Armstrong, you say you think this would be fun to adopt as a quilt in a square? It would be, absolutely. They're going to be really fun, really, really fun. So I can't wait to see what Sue Brown and her gang at OML Embroidery are going to do. And Kathy Stoser, you want to know, are these posted on Facebook with the hashtag? Yes, Dime Sew Along. Sharon, you want to know, is the frame available? The frame is available right now. And how about if I show you how to assemble the frame? Oh, and Linda Rogers, you are a newbie. You want to know, where do you get the design? So at the bottom, right here on the ticker, you can download that free design, and there's two, remember. So download the correct one. You can take both if you'd like, but download the right one. Oh, thank you, Cindy. That's very kind. Okay, so let's see. Oh, and Betty Turner, she says, you hope Sue Brown does the sew along with the Small Town Charm. Well, Sue has said she's going to do it. So you can count on Sue Brown to do the Small Town Charm sew along. Yep, on YouTube at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. That's 10 a.m. Eastern time. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. This is how it comes. And it's flat. Isn't that great? So it's going to ship really easy, thank heavens. So there are instructions inside that clearly tell you how to do it. And you're going to lay it flat on a table. And then you're going to hold the bottom part. And then you're just going to begin to lift one side and then the other side. Now, if you take a good look, you can see there's a break in the wire frame itself. So that's why you are able to bend at these 2 points. And then eventually you'll just get it so that it's all the way straight up. And there you have it. Was that easy? It's so easy. I love that. So, and it is available now. You don't see it on our website, but it's going to be there, I swear, because there's 1,000 right on the other side of that wall that I know is in-house and we're ready to ship. So if you don't see it on the website, I'm sure my team, somebody on our team is going to jump on there right now and get that done. Well, isn't that fun? Are we going to have fun in 2021 or what? Boy, I know we need it. Whew. But 2021 is going to be better than 2020 for sure. And let's see. And CB Niche wants to say, will the designs with video be revealed on the first Thursday of each month at 2 o'clock? You know, CB, that's a really good question. What we do here at Dime is we actually reveal it on the last Thursday of the month, except for January, because this year, New Year's Eve was on, Thursday. So we didn't do it. So we kind of, buy a little time. And, but going forward, February's will be revealed on January 28th. And March will be revealed on February 25th. So you can always count on the last Thursday of the month for the reveal. And then Sue Brown at OML Embroidery, she does the sew along on the following Saturday. So last Thursday, and then 2 days later is the sew along for sure. So let's see. And Susan, you are excited to see a horizontal oriented frame. Me too. And I'll tell you why, because, it is a whole new approach to design, but that 6x10 was so limited, that skinny vertical. I mean, basically all you could do was a door, right? So I'm excited for this. It's a lot more space. We have 2 stories, goodness knows where we'll go, right? So thank you so much for joining me. And I'm looking forward to being here with you next week. How much is the frame? Not sure. Anybody know in the Dime team? Maybe you could put it in the, I'm not going to say because I'm sure I'll get it wrong, but it's very affordable. So I hope you'll take advantage of it. And did anyone ask about the door designs? Yes, the door designs are discontinued. So all year I mentioned they would disappear on New Year's Eve 2020, and they have been retired. So thank you so much for joining, participating in 2020. And I can't wait to see what you do in 2021. So we'll see you next week. Happy New Year, everyone.